A Merseyside gang that ran the Boris drugs line slashed a terrified woman in the face and forced a vulnerable teenager to sell drugs to his own mum. Sickening gang bosses Adam McCardle and brothers James and Josh Mason terrorised the market town of Oswestry in Shropshire between July 2018 and February 2020 by exploiting vulnerable youngsters to sell crack and heroin. The men from Merseyside set up the Boris line between the northwest and the Shropshire town, taking an active role in travelling between the two locations to source and supply the drugs. The three leaders of the gang enjoyed a lavish lifestyle funded by their crimes, but left a trail of misery and terror on the streets. They enforced fear with ruthless aggression, attacking vulnerable drug users who owed debts and recruiting children, some as young as 14 and many of them known to social services as runners. But their illicit business was finally ravelled by West Mercia police after the home of James Mason was raided and the Boris line phone was seized. So the story begins back in 2019. West Mercia police said a woman was lured to a location in Oswestry and subjected to a vicious attack which left her life-changing facial injuries. It wasn't a random attack though, because the then 31-year-old woman had been lured there because there was an enforcer of a drugs gang and she owed him £500 debt. As a direct response to the heinous attack, West Mercia Police's Serious and Organised Crime Unit set out to dismantle the group responsible. Following intel work, officers were able to identify the gang responsible, and they were not local but instead were a Merseyside-based drugs gang who were pumping the Class A drugs into Oswestry through a phone nicknamed the Boris line. The gang had spent time building relationships with adult drug users and young people in Oswestry, who they persuaded to sell drugs on their behalf. They also identified vulnerable young people that they could exploit and traffic around Oswestry to do their bidding. On one occasion, a vulnerable young person they were exploiting was forced to sell drugs to their own mum. The officers, in collaboration with the local council of social services, came to understand which of the young dealers were being exploited and needed safeguarding from the gang. The Serious Organised Crime Unit developed a case against the leaders of the gang, and in February 2019, officers arrested two of the dealers working on the line to learn more about how it operated. July the 11th, 2019, officers from the Serious Organised Crime Unit travelled up to Merseyside and, with the support of local forces, raided addresses which resulted in the arrest of 7 people, including 2 of the gang's leaders, the brothers James and Josh Mason. Following a search of their properties, officers found the Boris line mobile number under the sofa. They also found a large amount of cash, drugs and a receipt for a Rolex watch worth around £4,500. Just hours later, after hearing about the arrest of his 2 partners, the third leader of the gang, McCardle, re-established the drugs line and continued to sell drugs in Oswestry in a desperate attempt to keep hold of his illegal activities. He, as well as others, were later arrested, and the 3 leaders of the gang pleaded guilty to being concerned in the supply of heroin, crack and modern-day slavery offences. McCardle was also convicted for the attack on a female in Oswestry. In August last year, James Mason was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment, and Joshua was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. However, 2 months later, the Court of Appeal increased the sentence for both brothers after the Solicitor General referred them under the unduly lenient sentence scheme. Former Solicitor General Mark Tomlinson said, "There is no doubt that Class A drugs has a devastating impact on local communities, and the young age of some of the people recruited to act as runners for this gang made this case even more appalling." Thankfully, the court recognised the damage caused by these brothers, and they have been ordered to spend longer in jail. I hope this case serves as a strong warning that those responsible for disturbing hard drugs on our streets will be punished. McCardle received a life sentence with a minimum term of 8.5 years for his role in the gang. And guys, in this next news story, 3 members of a criminal car gang that handled up to £1 million of stolen vehicles have been jailed for a combined total of nearly 12 years. The extensive police investigation caught the gang, led by Michael Kozub and Philip Zablocki, who would dismantle stolen vehicles at their chop shops. Detectives revealed that Kozub and Zablocki and their cohort were the go-to contacts for thieves across England who would deliver them stolen cars. Gang members would then dismantle vehicles, even chopping a Ferrari in half on one occasion, before moving and later exporting the separate parts. 3 police forces worked together in a 17-month investigation to bring down the linchpins of the criminal enterprise, culminating in the conviction and jailing of 3 members, with another narrowly avoiding jail. A painstaking investigation into the gang of 4 by detectives from Surrey Police and Metropolitan Police and Hampshire Constabulary was initiated after a previous case saw other criminals convicted of stealing over 125 cars. Officers spent hours scrutinizing phone messages in a 17-month investigation spanning 2022 and 2023. They identified that the criminal enterprise operated on a huge scale, with car thieves doing the dirty work for a central team that handled the stolen goods. Thieves would deliver cars stolen from Kent, Hampshire, Dorset, Wiltshire and London to the 4 organisers who used 2 sites as their chop shops. There they dismantled the cars, including an expensive Ferrari the officers later found cut in half. After police discovered one site in Hawley in West Sussex last autumn, the gang swiftly relocated to another in Crawley and also in West Sussex. However, detectives quickly tracked the enterprise down for a second time at its new headquarters. Kozub and Zablocki were said to be the central figures of the operation. The pair were described as the go-to contacts for car thieves, organising stolen cars to be delivered to their chop shops and keeping in close contact with an extensive network of convicted car thieves. Kozub was jailed for 6 years and 3 months after admitting to charges of conspiracy to receive stolen goods, with magistrates at Brighton Magistrates Court also imposing a serious crime prevention order. Zablocki, he was jailed for 2 years and 8 months after the same offence, as well as another for possession of coke. Their accomplice Dominic Mrizgold owned a transportation business and was responsible for getting stolen cars, both in whole and in parts, out of the UK. He pleaded guilty as his trial was looming and was sentenced to 3 years and 1 month in jail. The gang's mechanic, Marius Parafiniuk, was convicted of conspiracy to receive stolen goods, and he received a 15-month prison sentence, suspended for 2 years, and was ordered to pay £2,000 in costs. Detective Inspector Dan Voller of Surrey Police's Serious and Organised Crime Unit explained that the total value of cars to have passed through the gang amounted to nearly £1 million. These sentences as a result of excellent teamwork between a number of teams in Surrey Police and joint working with colleagues in the Met Police and Hampshire Constabulary. Said this included hours of meticulous searching through mobile phone evidence and prove there was a case to answer for this conspiracy. So guys, there's a couple of stories coming out from the streets of the UK. Once again, if you already haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel. Please give this video a little like. I'd appreciate it. It's your boy GT. Keep it locked, keep it real.